Friday night's ranked versus ranked showdown in Lincoln between Nebraska and Illinois once again proves how close and how tight some of these teams are together in the Big Ten Conference.
From LA to Piscataway, all Big Ten all year long. This is Big Ten 10.
What a great game. What a great showcase on Friday night. You know, the more games and the more weeks that goes by, the middle of this league and the depth of this league is really on display. Don't get it twisted. These are two very good football teams. I think Illinois proved a lot. I still think there's certainly a lot still ahead for the Nebraska Cornhuskers in this game, because I think when you look at this thing from the Nebraska point of view, you're going to look at this thing maybe a little bit pessimistically. It's another one-score loss. We left some things on the field, couldn't find a way to win. I get that. This is not like one of those losses in the past. This is not a bad one-score loss. Like, this is a Nebraska team, after all, that won the turnover battle. So when I look at this and you look at the box score, you look at some of these team stats and you look at some of these numbers, these are two very evenly matched football teams. And these are two very good football teams because of what both of these teams have at the quarterback position, that is where I want to start with when I go into my takeaways from this Friday night showdown. Winners first. Let's start with Luke Altmyer. Man, is he just so confident in this offense this season. Like, when he transferred from Ole Miss, and even before that, right, when he was a high school quarterback coming out, this was a four-star kid. This is a top 150, top 200 type of quarterback, and Luke Altmyer. So we always knew he had arm talent. We always knew we had skill. I think a big reason why Luke's talents are on display like they are this season, well, one of many reasons I should say, is this offensive line is actually protecting him this year, right? We saw his mobility a lot early in the season last year because he was running around a lot, because he was scrambling, because he needed to create plays, because maybe this orange and blue offensive line wasn't exactly the best in pass pro. And that was a big test for Illinois coming into this game. How are they going to be able to match up against this vaunted defensive line, especially on the interior? Interior versus interior. I think Illinois passed that test pretty good, right? I think this offensive line as a whole held their ground. And for Luke Altmyer to have this performance on the road in that environment, the 400th consecutive sellout at Memorial Stadium against that defense, right? A defense that I and many others were hyping up as a top 10, top 15 defense in all of college football, a top 3, a top 5, right, defense in the Big Ten Conference right now. And we'll talk about Barry Lunny Jr., the offensive coordinator, in a minute, because I think he's earning every penny of that contract. And I think he's a big reason why he's putting Luke into good situations. And the balance, right? Everything's working together, right? Everything's working off of each other for Illinois, but you always got to look to 9 in orange and blue. He's the one steering the ship right now, and he is a big reason why this team can be at 7, 8, 9 wins, maybe when we get to the month of November. Let's talk about Dylan Raiola for just a minute. You know, this was his first outing against a Big Ten defense, and a good Big Ten defense, albeit. So I thought he did pretty well, right? I certainly thought he showed off that arm strength, and he showed off those plays that we have seen on a Dylan Raiola highlight reel so far. I think when it came down to overtime, this offensive line just decided check out, right? This offensive line, they put in their 9-5 in regulation, and they just decided to mail it in, right? Because he was running for his life on those last few plays in overtime. You know, when it comes down to Dylan, when it comes down to the freshman going up against a good defense and a good pass defense, right? You certainly saw some windows shrink in the second half, but Dylan was able to keep on moving this football down the field. Really, for me, this was inches away from a Nebraska victory, and I think we'd be talking about Dylan maybe a little bit differently right now than maybe we are, because you look at that in the fourth quarter, what is that, 3 minutes to go? You've got a 3rd and 3. He's got a guy open in the end zone, and he just overthrows him at that point in time. And you could see the reaction from Dylan. He knew he had it, and he knew he was going to leave it on the field. And, of course, that led to a missed field goal. Tristan Alvano was not in this game, the starting kicker. You get a missed field goal wide left, and then you go to overtime, and then what happens in overtime happens, right? When you play a game against teams that are so evenly matched, it comes down to those key plays. It comes down to those little plays, and little plays you have to make. Illinois made them down the stretch. The Nebraska Cornhuskers did not. But Dylan Raiola it seems like he continues to get more comfortable. It seems like he continues to get better. He's going to continue to get better, folks, right? When we get, I think, to the second half of this season, I think Dylan's going to be looking really good. He's already looking really good right now in the football game. And, of course, like Illinois, you continue to work on that balance. You continue to work off the run game. I think we're going to cover it at the end of this reaction. All roads are ahead, certainly, for Dylan Raiola and the Nebraska Cornhuskers as well. But it's proven that both of these quarterbacks certainly are a big reason why both of these teams have taken a step forward. Folks, we ought to slap some respect on Illinois, all right, for what they did, and now their first 4-0 start since 2011. For what this team was able to accomplish in this type of environment, it really shouldn't surprise anybody that Brett Bielema is coaching these guys up, and Brett Bielema has these guys in a situation to have as much success as they've had this season. I want to talk about Barry Lunney Jr., man. Right? He is earning every cent of that contract. Really, when I'm watching this game and I'm watching the balance that Illinois is playing with, because I think there was a question, like I touched on earlier, there was a question on the interior. There was a question with this Illinois run game. But I thought Barry Lunney Jr. called this game knowing that he had an advantage in the throw game, and you were starting to see that Luke Altmyer playing with a little bit more confidence, where maybe he implemented the throw game to soften things up. In the run game, you went to the second half. They ran the football much better in the second half, and you really saw them really get that part of their offense going as well. And this is just such a balanced Illinois offense. And that's why it's so dangerous. And that's why a guy like Barry Lunney Jr. is able to really exercise his creativity because, hey, he knows I've got it in the throw game. I got a quarterback. I've got receivers on the outside. More on Pat Bryant here in just a minute. Man, I love that dude, right? I know if I get that part going, I know the run game can get going. And vice versa, right? You saw it. Hey, when the run game gets going, that opens up some stuff down the field as well. That is a dangerous combination to play with. All right, I want to talk about some goal line play calling from Barry Lunney Jr. and how he absolutely nailed it. Nailed it to a T. First, I want to make sure I get this right. Big Brandon Henderson, right? You got a guy wearing 90-something on the offensive line. You probably think, all right, he's coming in as an extra blocker, but the creativity to maybe do something a little bit unexpected, get him into the end zone. Brandon putting his foot in the dirt, getting upfield for the touchdown there. And then you look at overtime, right? After that big Caden Fagan run, you've got Pat Bryant, your number one target, lining up as a fullback, maybe hidden a little bit right behind Luke Altmyer on that offensive line. He leaks out past some defensive backs into the flat, and he gets in for the touchdown, which would be the game-winning touchdown when all was said and done. I thought that Barry Lunney Jr. was always just maybe one step ahead of Tony White in this particular matchup. I know Tony White got that turnover off the blitz coming from the blind side of Luke Altmyer, and that was kind of maybe Tony kind of one-upping Barry in that specific situation. But for the most part, I thought Barry Lunney Jr. he's just always staying one step ahead and one step ahead and one step ahead of Tony White in this particular matchup. Man, I love Pat Bryant. I love Pat Bryant. I know the injury to Zachary Franklin is going to really put this more into the spotlight, but even before that injury to Franklin in this particular game, I thought Pat Bryant already was the playmaker. He was already the guy that was getting multiple touchdowns in a game. He was already the guy that was getting 100-yard games, and you saw it once again on display in this particular football game. Like, you look at early in this game when he puts a double move, and he puts that move on Tommy Hill, one of the best corners in the Big Ten Conference right now, and being able to get free for Illinois to go ahead 7-0 early, it shows just how much Pat Bryant has improved, right? He's really been on the field since early in his career. I think he was on that field, during that great 2022 season a couple of years back, and he steadily improved. But this year, and they said it on the broadcast, he has taken a big jump. There's many reasons why Illinois, specifically offensively, has gotten so much better. Luke Altmyer is one. Improved offensive line play is another. Depth in the running back room outside of Caden Fagan, that's another reason why. But I think the improved play of Pat Bryant and having Zachary Franklin on the other side, they're going to need Zachary to be healthy, I think, for them to reach their ceiling of this offense in this particular year. All right, I want to finish with Nebraska. Okay, we put some respect in Illinois. I hope Illinois is a top 20, maybe 17, 18 type of ranked program. But when we look ahead for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, and I said this at the beginning, okay, I know it's another one-score loss. I know it's missed field goals. You maybe had some penalties that you wish you didn't have in this particular football game. But, man, this is a team that still has everything in front of them. This is a team that played a really good Illinois football team. All right? I know it's a home environment. I know maybe your defense didn't look like that black shirts type of defense that you were expecting, especially at home in this particular matchup. But sometimes you just got to tip your cap and say, Illinois was one step ahead of us. Illinois was just a little bit better than us in this particular football game. I thought, considering what the defense was on the other side for the orange and blue and the plays that Nebraska was able to make in this game, just falling just a little bit short. Okay, this is going to be tough. Big Ten conference play is going to be tough, folks. But you look ahead at Nebraska. This is a team that can learn from this type of game. I think there are certain, because I think the first 3 games of the season, you didn't play very good teams. So I think you're going to learn more about this one game than you did in the previous 3 games, which is good. It's good because you're going to be able to progress even more with this Big Ten slate here coming out, specifically the next 3 games. Now, you lose to a team like Illinois, and I know 7-0 was floated out there. I was never a believer in 7-0. I had them going 6-1 in the preseason. I had Indiana right as the loss, but I had close wins against teams like Illinois and teams like Rutgers. In theory, next week, you got a get-right game against the Purdue Boilermakers, right? You should be able to go in there and have a lot of success. But then you look at this on the other side of that game. You've got Rutgers, and you saw what Illinois was able to do with their run game, and Rutgers might be one of the best run games in the Big Ten, certainly right now. And then you look at Indiana and how that offense is really clicking. You got to go on the road to Bloomington for that. So there's going to be more challenges ahead for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So being able to improve, being able to develop is something they got to focus on. Now, I'm sure they would have loved to take all of that and said, hey, let's learn from this game and being able to get out with a win, but it didn't happen. You got to tip your cap to Brett Bielema in Illinois, because I think when all is said and done and we're kind of looking back on this season, I think Illinois is going to have a really good record, and I think Illinois is going to be a really good football team as well. Both quarterbacks, you see their stat lines for those of you watching on video. Luke Altmyer, 21 of 27, 215, and 4 touchdowns against the Nebraska defense. I'm curious to see the reaction of what other folks are going to have on Nebraska's defense, because I think that's the big question right now. I think a lot of people, including myself, that thought that this Nebraska defense was going to be able to contain Illinois, but now I think Illinois impressed a lot of people, including myself, and it really proved on what they can do offensively. So that whole dynamic is going to be interesting. Dylan Raiola, 297 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception in this particular game. Illinois, it is their first 4-0 start since 2011. I want to know what you guys think of this specific matchup. Do you think that this can be a big momentum builder for Illinois, and this can be a team? This can be a dark horse type of team to really watch out for, especially with the meat of the schedule coming up for the Illinois Fighting Illini. And how do you view this for Nebraska? I think that this is okay. This is a learning experience for the Huskers. Would they have loved to win? Absolutely. You'll love to win every game. But this is not like one of those one-score losses in the past, at least from my view. Curious what you think. I'm Big Ten Ted. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching Big Ten Ted, where it's all Big Ten all year long. Make sure to like the video to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses, and subscribe to the channel for updates on Big Ten content that drops every day.